that when the Academy built the stage, they didn't cut corners. Otherwise, it would have collapsed by now. After a moment, the referee's voice rang out. Lin Bai wins. At this moment, Lin Bai truly deserved it. Everyone's gaze was filled with admiration. One had to know that Lin Bai first defeated Luo Qin. His 2-star pet beast had suppressed a 4-star pet beast, and then he defeated Chen Wu. It was revealed that he actually cultivated martial arts and beast taming at the same time. He was very outstanding in both professions. Both of the top experts had lost in regret, not to mention the other figures in the academy. Without a doubt, Lin Bai had obtained the first place in the competition. Such an outcome was something that no one had expected. After all, the previous favorites to win the championship were Luo Qin and Chen Wu. Who would have thought that Lin Bai would suddenly appear out of nowhere and even enter everyone's sight with such formidable strength? Under everyone's envious gazes, Lin Bai walked onto the stage to receive the prize. The 2 pet beast skills were Iron Tail and Water Cannon. Both were relatively ordinary skill. However, the martial arts cultivation technique that was rewarded had some prestige. It was the cornerstone treasure of Academy, Heaven-Swallowing Myriad Phase Technique. This name sounded domineering, but in reality, the book was just like its name. It was also incomparably domineering and extremely powerful. However, it also had a fatal flaw. Ordinary cultivation techniques only required 1 time of spiritual power. Meanwhile, cultivating this cultivation technique required 10 times, or 100 times the cultivation time and energy of other cultivation techniques. In other words, it required a large amount of cultivation to feed this cultivation technique. However, how could ordinary people have so much cultivation? Therefore, no one had ever cultivated it. With this martial arts and cultivation, it was better to cultivate other cultivation techniques. There were better choices, so there was no need to waste energy here. When the crowd saw the Heaven-Swallowing Myriad Phase technique, their expressions immediately changed. Someone spoke with envy and jealousy, wishing that he could take Lin Bai's place at this moment. No way, they even took out such a powerful cultivation technique this year and gave it to him. Isn't he too lucky? If I had known that there was such a top-grade cultivation technique, I would have given it a shot no matter what. The companion beside him shook his head and had a different opinion. Lucky? I don't think so. You don't know that this cultivation technique sounds very powerful, but in the past 100 years, not a single person has managed to cultivate it. It's just flashy and unsubstantial. There were still quite a few people in the academy who knew the value of this cultivation technique and knew its characteristics. It's a pity to throw it away. It's tasteless to eat it. The academy really has a good plan. Since no one has succeeded in cultivating it, it would just be collecting dust in their warehouse. They might as well use it as a reward. In my opinion, it's useless for Lin Bai to obtain this cultivation technique. I reckon he would have no choice but to keep it at home to eat dust. When Lin Bai heard the words of the crowd, his heart was a little excited. Because he had the return system in hand, what he did not lack the most could be said to be the cultivation that time piled up. This cultivation method was simply tailored for him. It was the most suitable. If he had the time to deal with irrelevant people, he might as well use it to cultivate properly. Moreover, he was very interested in the Heaven-Devouring Myriad Phase technique that he had just obtained. I need to obtain a lot of cultivation. With the return system in hand, what I don't lack the most is cultivation. Lin Bai, whom everyone had been unable to find, had already appeared in the abandoned basement at the back of the mountain. No one would have thought that the person who had just obtained first place in the academy would actually be able to stay in this narrow room. Lin Bai studied the cultivation technique in his hand. It was unknown what material the ancient book cover was made of, but it looked rather old. The yellow curly corners all spoke of the long history of this book. The Heaven-Devouring Myriad Phase technique. The words on the cover were strong and powerful, and the overbearing aura that came at him seemed as if as long as he could cultivate it, even the heaven and earth would be under his control. In reality, no one could tell what was going on. After all, since ancient times, the number of people who had cultivated it could be counted on one's fingers. Some people said that if one cultivated it to the extreme, it could really swallow the sky, while others said that this cultivation technique was useless. This was because the cultivation and spiritual power it required in the later stages were simply too terrifying. It was like a bottomless pit that never had an end. No matter how much ample spirit force cultivation one had, it would be all consumed. He remembered that there was once an ancient aristocratic family who did not believe in this and used the entire clan's strength to support the disciples of the clan who were able to cultivate this cultivation technique. That person had indeed lived up to their expectations. After cultivating this cultivation technique, his strength increased by leaps and bounds, and he became the chosen one of the generation. However, as time passed, regardless of whether it was resources, cultivation, or spiritual power, the requirements became greater and greater. It was as if a whale was swallowing them. Even the ancient aristocratic families could not afford it, and they almost died because of it. Fortunately, they stopped their losses in time and gave up. Even so, their vitality was still greatly damaged. Falling from a first-rate aristocratic family was enough to show how terrifying this technique was. Lin Bai circulated one cultivation cycle and could already feel the profoundness of this cultivation technique. It was as if there was a force flowing through his meridians to all parts of his body. It gave people the feeling that a new meridian had opened up in his body. It was based on force. 10 forces were 1 ox, 10 oxen were 1 elephant, and 10 elephants were 1 flood dragon. It went on like this, and it was given the name Heaven-Devouring Myriad Phase Art. If one could cultivate this art to 10,000 elephant force, one could imagine its power. It was a pity that the person who cultivated the highest record in this cultivation technique seemed to have only cultivated to the strength of 1,000 elephants and stopped there. But this consumption of cultivation is indeed large. Lin Bai was a little surprised. The spiritual energy he had accumulated was only enough to circulate a few cycles before it was swept away, forcing him to stop cultivating. No wonder it's a money-burning cultivation technique. If one don't have any spiritual stone veins at home, he wouldn't even dare to cultivate it. Although Lin Bai didn't have any mines at home, he had the system. He looked at the environment around him and immediately showed a disdainful expression. Alternate heaven and blessed land was very important to cultivation. If one could cultivate in a good alternate heaven and blessed land, their efficiency would almost double. And the alternate heaven and blessed land were divided according to rank. From high to low, they were heaven, earth, mystic, yellow, and unrated. The living environment in the basement was too poor. The conditions were even less rated than unrated. He had to find a way to change his residence. Lin Bai calculated his own wealth. All the crystal stones he gained from before were used to buy storage bags and spiritual energy water. Now, he only had the 100,000 bonus that he had just received. It was a drop in the bucket. It was far from enough to buy a better place. A penny can defeat a hero. It seems that I still have to earn money. Lin Bai thought for a moment and decided to go to the Martial Arts Association to accept missions. After all, with his current strength, not to mention high-level missions, at least mid-level missions would not be a problem. When he walked to the Martial Arts Association, compared to the usual few people, there was now 3 layers of people inside and outside. It was almost impossible to get through the door. He did not know what had happened, but today was especially busy. On both sides of the street, there were many people who were watching the show. Lin Bai could not help but ask, "What's going on today? Everyone is crowded here. Could it be that something special happened?" That person said excitedly, "You don't know yet, right? If it's an ordinary member selling money in name, they can get 1,000 crystals. If it's a senior member, they can get 5,000 crystals." Hearing this, Lin Bai was even more confused. "What do you mean by selling money in name?" He revealed a surprised look. "You don't even know such a big piece of news. The 4 major forces are all rushing to snatch people." Lin Bai was completely focused on cultivation, and he didn't talk to anyone from the academy. It could be said that he didn't pay attention to the outside world. He only found out after asking in detail. There were 4 major forces in the city, namely the Broken Sword Escort Agency, the Green Lotus Medicine Shop, the Wind and Cloud Taoist Dojo, and the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. It turned out that they had recently discovered a new paradise. It actually had a middle-level mystic-grade spirit vein. Coincidentally, this spirit vein did not belong to any of the powers. Therefore, They all wanted a piece of the pie. In order to determine the ownership of the spirit vein, the four major powers had many disputes. In the end, they decided to hold a competition. For the sake of fairness, it was only limited to the younger generation's participation. The final victor would receive half of the spirit vein, and the remaining three powers would split the rest equally. The competition would be conducted as a team, and external assistance could also be sought. Therefore, everyone ran over to the Martial Arts Association side to recruit people. Among them, the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce was extremely wealthy, and they had spent a large sum of money. It seemed that they were determined to obtain the spirit vein this time. Then what will be the reward for their victory in the competition? That person shook his head, indicating that he did not know. How could people like us know? Perhaps we will only know after we participate in the competition. After all, the four great factions have joined hands to organize it, so the rewards should not be too bad. Even if there are no rewards, if we can go to the alternate heaven-blessed land to cultivate for free, I think it would not be a loss. He revealed a self-deprecating smile. However, for small figures like us who do not have high cultivation levels, we can only go there as cannon fodder. It would be good enough if we can get the money, but forget about the rewards. The four major factions in the city could be said to have occupied the best alternate heaven-blessed lands. Unfortunately, they were not open to outsiders, and were only available for people from their own factions to cultivate. After explaining everything to Lin Bai, that person hurriedly ran into the Martial Arts Association. I won't talk to you for now. If the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce has hired enough people, then I'll suffer a great loss. Lin Bai watched him leave, his heart slightly moved. Whether it was for the unknown rewards or the opportunity to cultivate in the alternate heaven-blessed land, participating in this competition would only bring him benefits and no harm. Just as he walked into the Martial Arts Association, he saw a few conspicuous signboards. The Broken Sword Escort Agency was a small sword that shone with a cold light. He did not know why a corner of the sword was missing, but even so, it did not detract from its dignity. The Green Lotus Medicine Shop was a piece of green leaf and branch that were full of vitality. It was filled with an exuberant smell of green. The Wind and Cloud Taoist Dojo had the symbol of white clouds. It looked free and uninhibited, and there was a carefree feeling permeating. As for the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce, it was a ferocious beast head, eyeing the passing crowd with covetous eyes. Because the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce was rich and overbearing, it had the most people on its side. Lin Bai hesitated for a moment before walking over. According to the current situation of the four major forces, the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce had a very high chance of winning first place. It was better to go to it. When the person in charge saw Lin Bai hand over a high-level membership card, his expression was indifferent. Perhaps it was because they was rich and overbearing. There were already quite a number of people who had signed up previously. High-level members who were usually rare were also very common here. Everyone was not a fool. There were quite a number of people who had some strength, but were not from the four great factions. They also held the same thoughts as Lin Bai and wanted to use this opportunity to obtain some benefits. They all came over to the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce's side. As a result, they had recruited quite a number of people here, and they were almost full. It was no wonder that he had an indifferent attitude. How's your cultivation level? Let's take a look at your identification. As Lin Bai had been busy with cultivation previously, coupled with the upcoming competition, he had forgotten to update it. As a result, the identification was still written at Hotion level 4. What? Only Hotion 4th stage. The manager looked at the advanced membership card and looked at Lin Bai suspiciously. He said bluntly, how could a mere Hotion level 4 obtain an advanced membership card? Could it be that he used some improper means? It was no wonder that he had such thoughts. The names of the advanced members on the list were all at 7th or 8th level. There were even those who were at Xiantian realm. Lin Bai's cultivation level would not look good on the list. The person in charge impatiently opened his mouth to chase them away. He did not want to deal with Lin Bai anymore. We are already full. We don't need any more people. You can go and take a look elsewhere. Lin Bai frowned. But you guys just... Before he could finish his sentence, the person in charge opened his mouth with an unfriendly expression. I said that we are already full. Do you not understand human language? Hurry up and move aside. Don't block the way. The person in charge waved his hand, as if he was shooing away flies. Lin Bai gave him a cold glance, picked up the advanced membership card, and turned around almost at the same time. The Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce received another person with an advanced membership card, but his cultivation had already reached the Xiantian state. Our Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce welcomes your arrival. We hope to work hard together in this competition. Hearing the voice behind him, Lin Bai smiled indifferently. He felt that it was extremely ironic. Heh, we're full of people. Forget it. Since there was no one left here, there was a place for them to stay. He only hoped that when the time came for the competition, the members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce would not regret it. Lin Bai returned to his usual calm appearance. However, there was a hint of coldness in the depths of his gaze. Just as he was about to head to the Broken Sword Escort Agency, he heard a familiar female voice coming from the southeast. Wan Huiyang, you're really going too far. Lin Bai stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction of the voice. It was from the direction of the Wind and Cloud Dojo. This voice seems to be. At the same time, at the Wind and Cloud Dojo, Chan Wu stared angrily at the man in front of her. Two red blobs appeared on her snow-white cheeks. It was unknown whether she was angry or embarrassed. Wan Huiyang, you are really abusing everyone in the Wind and Cloud Dojo. You actually dared to touch me in public. The man standing in front of her wore a purple robe. It was made from the fur of a superior purple-gold coiling cloud beast. Not only did it have the effect of increasing spiritual power, but its defense was also top-notch. The purple-gold crown on his head made him look even more imposing. His gaze fell on Chen Wu's body, which was somewhat revealing, making him appear a little frivolous. Why are you so angry? Anyway, it's only a matter of time before you're mine. Why do you have to say such harsh words and make everyone laugh at you? Seeing his self-righteous manner, his words seemed to treat her like a piece of cake. Chunwu couldn't take it anymore. She waved her fan and was about to make a move, but was pulled back by the person beside her. Senior Martial Sister, don't be rash. You've fallen for this villain's trick. This is the Martial Arts Association. We can't cause trouble here. The Wind and Cloud Dojo was already having a hard time. It wasn't worth it to offend the Martial Arts Association for such a villain. Chunwu gripped the handle of her fan and reluctantly closed it. She stared coldly at Wan Huiyang. Get out of my way. Wan Huiyang smiled indifferently. You have a bad temper. If we really get married in the future, I'll teach you a good lesson. I'll say it again. Get lost. The killing intent in Chen Wu's eyes was almost tangible, but Wan Huiyang did not seem to notice it. Even if we're going to fight, we should fight on the day of the competition. Let's save our energy. After saying this, he swaggered off with his men. He gave Chen Wu a meaningful look, his eyes full of determination to win. Lin Bai happened to see this scene in the crowd. It turned out that Chen Wu was the eldest daughter of the Wind and Cloud Dojo. In the past few years, the Wind and Cloud Dojo had been declining day by day, to the point that only Chen Wu could be considered to have some strength. Some of the others were good, some were bad. Fortunately, she was still quite capable. Not only was her talent outstanding, but she was also quite hard-working. However, even so, she still couldn't save the Wind and Cloud Dojo from its decline. If she couldn't get first place this time and obtain the Spirit Vein, their bloodline would be eliminated. And Chen Wu herself would also be forced to marry Wan Huiyang, the young master of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. Senior Martial Sister, what do we do? We did not manage to recruit many people today, and all of them were snatched away by the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. If this continues, I'm afraid. Chun Wu bit her lip and looked around the crowd. Her eyes met Lin Bai's gaze, and her eyes could not help but light up. There was a ready-made helper now. She had experienced Lin Bai's strength before. If he could lend a hand, she would have a greater chance. Chun Wu greeted him. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here. Lin Bai nodded. What a coincidence. Seeing that Chun Wu seemed to want to say something but hesitated, Lin Bai already had some guesses in his heart. If you have something to say, just say it. Chun Wu might as well get straight to the point. I want to ask for your help. I hope that you can join our Wind and Cloud Dojo. Lin Bai pondered for a short while before answering, It's not impossible for me to help. If I can win this competition, you must give me priority to cultivate in the alternate heaven-blessed land. If we can win the competition, that's easy? Lin Bai and Qinwu looked at each other. The two of them hit it off. The competition would only begin a few days later. During this period of time, Lin Bai had been cultivating without any sleep or food. After all, he had reached an agreement with Chen Wu, and the strength of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce's people was not to be underestimated. In the basement of the back mountain, under the dim light, one could faintly see a huge white cocoon. If anyone else were to come closer to take a look, they would be shocked to discover that it was actually Lin Bai. They could only see his body floating in midair, the spiritual energy within his body circulating, swallowing clouds and exhaling fog. The air was congealed with wisps of white fog that drooped down like a distant Milky Way, wrapping him within. The scene was like a dream and an illusion. Even this dilapidated basement seemed to be shining brightly. Heaven-devouring myriad phase art was circulating at a high speed in his body. It was as if it was a bottomless pit and drained spiritual energy and cultivation rapidly. If this continued, they would be completely exhausted. Little Green, Lin Bai shouted. Little Green, who was dozing off beside him, immediately stood up and quickly landed in his hand. Ding! The host has passed Little Green 10 days of cultivation. The 100 times return has been successfully triggered. The host has obtained 1,000 days of cultivation. Boom! A loud noise could be heard as a huge amount of spiritual energy gushed out from the basement. The huge white cocoon was now like a small boat floating in the boundless ocean. Countless spiritual power washed through Lin Bai's veins. Under the baptism of the spiritual power, even the blood vessels on his hands revealed a faint golden color. His body and dantian were constantly tempered. The bottleneck that he could not touch was suddenly opened, and something gushed out. Lin Bai frowned. At this moment, he felt that his entire body was undergoing reconstruction and forging. It was as if his bones had been broken, and the impurities hidden in the depths of his flesh and blood had been removed. If it were any other ordinary person, they would have probably fainted by now. However, he did not make a single sound. Other than his pale face, no one could tell how much pain he was suffering at this moment. Bean-sized beads of sweat slid down his forehead. Lin Bai's eyes were bloodshot, and his original white cocoon had turned a little more blood-red. He did not know how long this inhuman pain had lasted. Lin Bai was almost numb. He only felt his body relax, as if there was a warm current flowing through his body, repairing the previous wounds. That feeling was like a dead tree coming back to life, and everything sprouting. It was extremely magical. All the pain disappeared and was replaced by abundant spiritual energy. A divine light flashed in his eyes, making people even more afraid to look at him directly. A divine light flashed in the air. Lin Bai's figure was nowhere to be seen. In just a breath, he appeared on the back mountain. Boom! He punched the mountain rock. The originally indestructible mountain body was like tofu. Suddenly, the mountain collapsed and the earth cracked. Broken stones flew in all directions. Birds flew up in shock. It was as if the sky was about to collapse. After a moment, everything calmed down. It was as if a fierce wind had passed by, destroying everything, especially the marks on the mountain. He couldn't believe that this was actually done by a human. Even Lin Bai himself was a bit surprised. He looked at his hand. I didn't expect that the combination of heaven-devouring myriad phase art and the octane blast would be so powerful. He had only casually waved his hand just now, and didn't even release 50% of his power, but it was already so terrifying. Now, his heaven-devouring myriad phase art was already quite effective. He had cultivated the power of 2 elephants, and he had only obtained this cultivation technique for a short time. If this speed were to be spread out, it would scare people to death. His strength could be said to have multiplied. Hiss hiss. Hearing Little Green's movements, Lin Bai saw that it seemed to have grown a little bigger, and the small bulge on its forehead also became more obvious. What is this? He took a closer look and saw that 5 inches in front of the snake, there was an additional bulge, one on the left and one on the right. Lin Bai touched it, and that feeling was somewhat indescribable. It was a bit like the bones of a bird. Could it be that these are wings? The more Lin Bai looked at it, the more he felt that it was highly possible. Little Green should be evolving towards the direction of the Rain Dragon. He didn't know what would happen on the day it matured. I almost forgot the date of the competition. Lin Bai hurried down the mountain, but he didn't know that the competition between the four major forces had already begun. The Wind and Cloud Dojo and the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce stood facing each other. Not only were the people from the Wind and Cloud Dojo in a sorry state, but they also had wounds of varying sizes on their bodies, making them look rather miserable. On the other hand, the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce was acting high and mighty for no other reason than that the competition was divided into 8 matches. Other than Qinwu, who had won, the Wind and Cloud Dojo had lost 2 matches in a row and were already on the verge of elimination. The Wind and Cloud Dojo had sent out all of their elites. On the other hand, the 10,000 Beast Chamber of Commerce still had a few elite disciples who had yet to make a move. Qinwu could not help but reveal a look of despair. Could it be that the Wind and Cloud Dojo was really going to stop here? Wan Huiyang walked over smugly. Why do you have to put up a stubborn resistance? The competition is already set in stone. Your Wind and Cloud Dojo will definitely lose. Why don't you follow me earlier? After saying that, he stretched out his hand to touch Qinwu's face, but was flung away by Qinwu. This is a competition ground. Please show some respect. Wan Huiyang seemed to have heard a huge joke. You're about to become my woman. I can do whatever I want. Qinwu bit her lips tightly. It's not the final moment yet. The outcome is still uncertain. Don't be too pleased with yourself. At this moment, the referee's voice came from the arena. The Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce versus the Wind and Cloud Taoist sect. The Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce wins. Another loss. Qinwu's face instantly turned pale. If she lost another match, she would lose the qualification to participate in the competition. If she wanted to win, it meant that she had to win 4 matches in a row. This was simply impossible to accomplish. Wan Huiyang's ambiguous gaze swept across Qinwu. Looks like I'll have to immediately order people to arrange our wedding. He turned around and left with a savage smile. Qinwu's eyes were red with anger. She clenched her fists and made cracking sounds. The others were afraid that she would do something impulsive. Senior Martial Sister, the big picture is the most important thing. We will definitely not let you marry that scum. Although she said that, the expressions on everyone's faces did not look good. Senior Martial Sister, what should we do? Almost no one from our side can go on stage. The sobbing voice of the little junior sister came from beside her. Hasn't Lin Bai arrived yet? The junior martial brother guarding the door shook his head. Could it be that he had retreated on the spot, or that he was afraid of offending the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce? Various thoughts flashed through Qinwu's mind, and she couldn't help but sigh. She had originally thought that Lin Bai was an important figure, but she hadn't expected him to be just us. In the end, it's me who overestimated him. After hearing this, the members of the Wind and Cloud Dojo were even more flustered. Then what should we do next? It was about to be time to enter the arena, but none of them were able to enter. If you really can't do it, just admit defeat and let your eldest martial sister marry our young master directly. Who says so? Now that the Wind and Cloud Dojo is out of people, it's a waste of our time to struggle here. The people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce looked condescendingly and immediately burst into laughter. Their eyes were filled with contempt and disdain. The people of the Wind and Cloud Dojo were so angry that their bodies were trembling. This is too much. I must teach them a lesson. Seeing that a disciple was about to forcefully stand up, Qinwu ordered him to leave. You can't beat them at all. If you go, there will be meaningless casualties. The referee announced the rules of the competition with an expressionless face. At the last moment, if no one else goes on stage, you will lose the qualification to compete. The pale-faced young man coughed and said, "Cough, cough. Senior Martial Sister, let me go. I can still do it." "No, Martial Brother Zhang, you were seriously injured in the match just now and haven't recovered yet. If you go up now, you will only be courting death. You can't joke about your own life. Even if I die, I will fight until the last moment. I will never let that scumbag Wan Huiyang succeed." Zhang Haoran coughed even harder when he talked about his excitement. However, How could she let him go on stage in his current state? Chen Wu's eyes were red. Her heart was filled with deep despair. Could it be that there was no room for negotiation? Just as the referee was about to announce the results, a cold male voice was heard. "I'm late." To Chen Wu, it was like the sound of nature. She suddenly turned her head back. It was the late Lin Bai. "I'm sorry. I was too engrossed in my cultivation and didn't pay attention to the time." "I'm not too late, am I?" "Not too late. As long as you're here, it's good." "I thought." Chen Wu lowered her head in embarrassment. She didn't finish her sentence, but the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce were filling in for her. "I thought you were a coward. After hearing our name, you didn't dare to appear." The Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce was still wondering who the external aide Chen Wu had invited was. When they saw that it was actually an unfamiliar face, it was fine if that was the case, but the identity plate also showed that he was at Hotian level 4, so they didn't take Lin Bai seriously at all. Chen Wu glanced at Lin Bai worriedly, worried that he wouldn't be able to handle it. Lin Bai's people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce are indeed not easy to deal with. "If you choose to withdraw now, I won't blame you." She was already very grateful that Lin Bai could come. Just as Wan Huiyang had said, the matter was already settled. Even if Lin Bai was powerful, it was simply impossible for him to win 4 matches in a row. Moreover, the few great experts of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce hadn't even entered the arena yet. Lin Bai gave her a reassuring look. "Since I've promised you, I'll definitely do it. There's absolutely no reason for me to retreat at the last minute. You just need to remember one thing and prepare the alternate heaven-blessed land." His face was calm as if all the difficult problems could be solved easily. Chen Wu was stunned as she watched Lin Bai walk onto the arena, still in a daze. The unrestrained and uninhibited back view was frozen in her eyes. For some reason, it actually made her feel somewhat at ease. However, Senior Brother Zhao and a few other senior brothers and sisters from before revealed suspicious gazes and said uneasily, "Senior sister, is this person you're looking for okay? He's only at Hotian State level 4. He definitely can do it." For some reason, Chen Wu had an inexplicable trust in Lin Bai. But his cultivation level doesn't mean everything. He once defeated me in a competition in the academy. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but gape. After all, Chen Wu was publicly acknowledged as the most powerful person in the Wind and Cloud Dojo. Wan Huiyang looked at the commotion and could not help but narrow his eyes. He asked the people beside him, "Does anyone know this kid?" Everyone shook their heads to show that they did not know. The people beside him said fawningly, "I think he should be a small fry, the kind that is not famous. Young Master Wan, don't take him to heart." However, Wan Huiyang saw the interaction between Lin Bai and Chen Wu. He had already treated Chen Wu as his own possession. Seeing her suddenly show such a dependent expression towards Lin Bai, it was extremely glaring. He sneered and said, "Find someone to play with him properly. Don't let others underestimate the strength of our Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce." His subordinates understood the hidden meaning of his words and immediately nodded in agreement. Originally, to deal with a character like Lin Bai, it would have been fine to just send a random person. But now, it was Li Zhonghong who had appeared. Chen Wu couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, her expression slightly unsightly. How could it be him? Initially, she had been hoping for a fluke, thinking that the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce would underestimate their opponent. This way, Lin Bai would be able to win one round effortlessly, and the subsequent matches would be more assured. Who would have thought that he would actually be one of the 3 great experts of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce? Li Zhonghong, who was known for his strength and believed in using his strength to defeat all living things. On the stage, Li Zhonghong clearly didn't put Lin Bai in his eyes. Even if you want to stand up for someone, you should first weigh your own strength. You're just a mere Hotian 4th stage, yet you dare to step onto the stage. You really don't know how the word death is written. Lin Bai's gaze was cold, and his expression was a little impatient as he said, "Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Li Zhonghong saw that his attitude was even more arrogant than his, and he instantly became angry out of embarrassment. "You're courting death." The instant he finished speaking, a huge array lit up on the stage, and a faint tiger's roar could be heard. A six-star saber-toothed tiger leaped out from within. It was so awe-inspiring that even the deaf could hear it. It stared coldly at Lin Bai, as if it was looking at food on a plate. Its two fangs flickered with a sharp light. The figures of a man and a tiger overlapped in the air. With every step that Li Zhanghong took, the ground trembled a little. It was as if a ferocious tiger had descended from the mountain, bringing with it a crushing force as it pounced towards Lin Bai. Because the force was so strong that the ground could not bear it, spider web-like cracks appeared on it. This was Li Zhanghong's famous ultimate skill, Tiger Roar Mountain Forest. A powerful pressure came at Lin Bai's face, weaving into a huge net that covered Lin Bai. Lin Bai did not even blink, showing no intention of avoiding it. Everyone could not help but sweat for Lin Bai. It's over. If he gets hit by Li Zhanghong, it will be a problem whether his corpse will be intact. The people of the Wind and Cloud Dojo should just wait to collect his corpse. He's such a fine young man, yet wants to provoke the people of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. Now, he's scared silly and doesn't dare to move. Seeing that Li Zhanghong was almost within reach, Lin Bai finally moved. However, he didn't dodge. Instead, he assumed an offensive stance. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded. Is this guy a fool? Li Zhanghong is famous for his strength, but he still wants to fight head-on? Even Li Zhanghong looked at Lin Bai in disbelief, revealing a bloodthirsty smile. Goodbye, you reckless brat. Lin Bai's expression did not change. The heaven-devouring myriad phase art was circulating in his body, and no one could see where he was. The ground had already sunk in, as if the Pengu giant had descended. Just as Li Zhanghong thought that he had won, his smile suddenly froze on his face, replaced by a look of extreme fear. The person in front of him was clearly extremely ordinary, but when he approached, it gave him a feeling of great pressure and danger. At that moment, Li Zhanghong's hair stood on end, and an unprecedented chill surged into his heart. Lin Bai smiled indifferently. Heaven-devouring myriad phase art in his hand was already ready, but in contrast, Li Zhanghong's expression was flustered. He wanted to withdraw his move, but it was already too late. Outsiders did not know what was going on. Seeing Li Zhanghong's aggressive approach and thinking of the bloody scene that might happen next, they could not bear and looked away. Rumble. After the loud sound, there seemed to be a few clear sounds mixed in. It was unknown if it was because of broken bones or something else. Sand and stones flew in the arena. Dust and smoke burst out. The aftermath of spiritual power swept over everyone's bodies, shocking them to take a step back. What happened? Why is there such a huge impact? Such a huge amount of spiritual power. Could it be that Li Zhanghong has broken through again? As the dust blocked everyone's vision, they couldn't see clearly what was going on. For a moment, everyone felt an itch in their hearts, and they stretched out their necks to look. Logically speaking, although Li Zhanghong's ultimate skill was powerful, it definitely couldn't create such a huge pressure. The members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce were similarly puzzled. They looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. On the other hand, Wan Huoyang frowned, suddenly having a bad premonition in his heart. How is this possible? After the dust had cleared, everyone finally saw the scene inside clearly. However, they were all stunned. They only saw Lin Bai standing with his hand. On the contrary, it was Li Zhanghong who had fallen to the side unconscious. Even the saber-toothed tiger, no, it should be called the toothless tiger now. The two huge and sharp fangs were held in Lin Bai's hands, and he played with them. Everyone finally knew where the crisp voice came from earlier. Lin Bai raised his eyebrows. That's it? The Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce? It was a very short sentence and did not say anything else. However, those who understood it. This was even more lethal than saying 100 words. When had the people of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce ever suffered such a great humiliation? The person who shouldn't have fallen had fallen. On the other hand, the small fry in their eyes were so arrogant. This was no different from an ant showing off in front of an elephant. I'm in a hurry. Hearing this, Wan Huoyang's face immediately darkened. The next person to go on stage was Sun Mingze. His strength was even more powerful than Li Zhanghong's. With Li Zhanghong's example, he would be even more cautious and wouldn't let down his guard. Kid, don't be too arrogant. You were just lucky just now. Many people below the stage thought so too. No one dared to believe that Lin Bai could really kill Li Zhonghong in one move. He might have used some special method. Lin Bai spoke very sincerely. The person who spoke like you just now was already unconscious and carried off. I hope you won't be the second one. Sun Mingze didn't say anything more after being choked by him. He immediately assumed an offensive stance and summoned his pet beast, a 6-star sky-ripping ape. Similarly, Lin Bai also summoned Little Green to fight. Sun Mingze wasn't like Li Zhonghong. In terms of strength, no one present could compare to Lin Bai. After all, he had the heaven-devouring myriad phase art and octane blast's double buffs. That was why Lin Bai was fearless just now, taking Li Zhonghong's attack head-on. However, Sun Mingze had learned his lesson this time, and he drove the sky-ripping ape towards Lin Bai. Although it was only a test, he had used the sky-ripping ape's ultimate skill, soul-subduing roar. Along with the ear-piercing screech of a beast, everyone's eardrums seemed to be pierced. Some people with lower cultivations had already covered their ears, but even so, their faces still revealed an extremely pained expression. The others hurriedly circulated all their spiritual power to resist. The sound waves on the stage swept up streams of air currents, and they were actually able to form corporeal forms. This was sufficient to show how terrifying the sky-ripping ape's sound waves were. Little Green! Lin Bai shouted loudly, and Little Green instantly soared into the air. Like green lightning, it wrapped itself around the sky-ripping ape's body at a speed that was difficult for the naked eye to catch. Bind! The sky-ripping ape was caught off guard and was forced to stop its attack. A circle of green was wrapped around its neck, and from afar, it looked like a leaf. It was Little Green's masterpiece. If I'm not mistaken, this should be a 2-star beast pet. Since when can a 2-star pet be able to bind a 6-star pet? Everyone looked as if they were in a dream. Sun Mingze didn't understand this point either, but he quickly reacted as he had plenty of combat experience. Heaven Splitter! He shouted loudly, and a deep trench suddenly appeared on the ground. Looking at the scar, it seemed as if it had really been split into two by something. The pressure that emerged from it shocked everyone. Seeing that the crack was rapidly heading in Lin Bai's direction and was about to devour him completely, Lin Bai calmly struck out with his palm. This is the end. It's time for everything to end. An even more terrifying aura emerged from his hand. It was as if a skyscraper was about to collapse. The sky and earth changed color because of it. That kind of power was as if 5 mountains could be easily crushed. This time, everyone could finally see Lin Bai's actions clearly. He only waved his hand lightly, and Sun Mingze was like a paper man, swept up into the air by the boundless palm force. Everyone's mouths were wide open. They saw Sun Mingze fly through the air, drawing a beautiful parabola before he fell heavily to the ground. Next, Lin Bai said casually. That expression looked as if he wanted to be beaten up as much as possible in the eyes of the people from the 1,000-beast Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, Wan Huoyang's expression was like the bottom of a pot. Let me have a go at you. That man was tall and burly. His tiger-like eyes were bright and full of vigor. He looked like he was not to be trifled with. His eyes were cold and stern, and he did not say any unnecessary words. A golden light suddenly appeared. On his shoulder was a majestic eagle. It was actually a 7-star 9 evolution thunder eagle. It flapped its wings slightly, as if there were tiny bolts of lightning shuttling through it. It was enough to tell how extraordinary it was. The 9 evolution golden thunder eagle was famous for its speed. It took a person's head from 1,000 miles away. Coupled with Xiao Bo's unpredictable movement technique, Lin Bai wouldn't even be able to know how he would die. Wan Huoyang smiled coldly, as if he could already see the scene of Lin Bai's head being chopped off. Even Qin Wu and the others couldn't help but sweat for Lin Bai. In the world of martial arts, speed is the only thing that cannot be countered. His speed has already reached the limit. Lin Bai doesn't seem to have much of a chance of winning. Although Lin Bai is powerful, he had already expended a lot of energy fighting the two of them just now. He might not be able to deal with him. The crowd began to belittle Lin Bai, causing the members of the Wind and Cloud Dojo to be in an uproar. On the other hand, Qin Wu was calm and composed, as if she was certain that Lin Bai would win. Senior sister, why aren't you worried? Chuan-Wu silently looked at the arena, her watery eyes brimming with trust. I believe in him. The instant her voice fell, the outcome of the battle between the two had already been decided. Golden feathers danced in the air, scattering down like snowflakes. Accompanied by tiny bolts of lightning, they appeared even more beautiful and colorful. It was just a little tiring. The originally awe-inspiring 9 evolutions Thunder Condor had now turned into a bald bird. However, its body was huge, and from a distance, it looked like a big meatball. If it weren't for the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce, everyone would have laughed out loud by now. Even so, everyone's shoulders were still trembling. One could imagine how hard it was to hold in their laughter. The expressions of the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce were not good, especially Wan Huliang. His face was so gloomy that water could almost drip out of it. Useless trash. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence. The other members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce lowered their heads in shame. They were proud of being the best among their peers, but now they had all fallen into the hands of an unknown person. The most important thing was that that person was only at the Hotian level 4. If word got out, the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce would lose all its face. Lin Bai calmly said, "Next." This sentence was like a demonic tune. When the members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce heard it, they actually showed some fear, so much so that they looked at each other. No one actually dared to go on stage. After all, a few of the best fighters had already been beaten down by Lin Bai. You bunch of useless people. At such a critical moment, you actually can't use any of them. What's the point of feeding you? Wan Huliang was flustered. His expression was sinister as he looked at Lin Bai on the stage. If that's the case, then I'll go up personally. Young master, you can't do that. When the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce and the others heard this, they were a little anxious. This kid is a little strange. I don't know what his background is. Previously, Sun Ziming, Li Zhonghong, and the others were all defeated. Before he could finish his words, Wan Huliang's expression was dark, and his gaze was frighteningly cold. You mean that I'm inferior to him? Seeing that he was so insistent, the crowd couldn't persuade him any further. Moreover, although Wan Huliang's personality wasn't good, his strength was unquestionable. He was even above the 3 of them, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Seeing Wan Huliang personally step onto the stage, many people revealed different expressions. Now there's a good show to watch. Even the young master of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce has personally stepped in. Who do you think will win this time? It's hard to say. Although Wan Huliang rarely makes a move, his strength is not to be underestimated among the younger generation. As for Lin Bai, his 3 consecutive victories are enough to show his strength. If you ask me, this Wan Huliang will definitely lose. Since the 3 great experts have already lost, it doesn't matter if he goes up too. That person opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but his companion beside him gave him a crazy look. Only then did he notice that the faces of the people in the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce was getting darker and darker. His companion lowered his voice and reminded him, "You don't know your limits when you speak. So what if that Lin Bai is powerful? He has no one behind him, so how could he possibly fight against the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce, which has a strong background?" The whispers of these people also reached the ears of Lin Bai and Wan Huliang. Wan Huliang's ugly expression eased a little. Even so, the viciousness in his gaze could not be hidden. If he had only wanted to teach Lin Bai a lesson before, now he was filled with killing intent. You do have some ability and luck, but you will stop here because you've met me. Lin Bai was a little impatient. Why does your Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce always say such nonsense before the battle starts? You've already seen the fate of the first 3 people. You won't be the last. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Not to mention the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. Even the people from the other factions could not help but cast sidelong glances when they heard these words. It's a good thing to have strength, but to be overly arrogant and overconfident is to overestimate oneself. Does this kid really think that we are just putting on a show? He actually dares to say such words. Can he beat everyone in the arena to the ground all by himself? The people below the stage discussed animatedly, But the battle on the stage had already reached a stalemate. Following Lin Bai's loud shout, Octane Blast, the violent airflow swept across the entire stage, causing everyone to step back one after another. They were afraid of being affected by this force, and several cracks had already appeared on the floor tiles on the stage. They were all traces left behind by battle techniques and spiritual energy. Wan Huiyang immediately took out a transparent defensive barrier. The surface of the barrier rippled with a transparent water light, and it looked very extraordinary. However, in the next second, his face turned deathly pale. The defensive barrier actually shattered completely. Under the impact of the spiritual energy, it was actually like a thin layer of paper. He suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. Young Master! Seeing the scene in front of them, the members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce were so furious that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. One after another, they stood up from their seats, and Wan Chaozong, the grand elder of the Wan family, was even more furious. Who exactly is this kid? Does anyone here know him? However, after a round of questioning, everyone shook their heads, indicating that they didn't know. He should be a high-level member that the Wind and Cloud Dojo randomly pulled over from the Martial Arts Association. I don't know the exact details. Wan Chaozong took a deep breath and cupped his hands towards the people from the Broken Sword Escort Agency and the Green Lotus Medicine Shop. This kid is really detestable. If I don't teach him a lesson, I'll really be unable to resolve the hatred in my heart. I hope that everyone can lend a hand. The people from the Broken Sword Escort Agency had always had a good relationship with the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. They didn't want to offend them, so they naturally agreed. Since Brother Wan has said it, we naturally have to do it. As for Elder Xie from the Green Lotus Medicine Shop, although he had a kind face, he was used to being the one who took matters into his own hands. When he saw that the Broken Sword Escort Agency was also on the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce's side, he immediately said without hesitation, "Don't worry, Brother Wan. We will definitely do our best to help you vent your anger." After saying that, he took out his own signature product. It was a medium-level mystic-grade small fortune pill. This pill could double a person's cultivation in a short period of time. The elite disciples of several factions took the pill together and walked towards the arena. Damn, they are too shameless. They are actually taking drugs. When the people of the Wind and Cloud Dojo saw this scene, they clenched their fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. Pooey, to think that they are also people who dominate a region. If they can't beat someone, they will take drugs. How can they be so shameless? Looking at the situation now, they are actually planning to take turns fighting. No matter how powerful Brother Lin is, I'm afraid he will be exhausted to death by them. Senior sister, what should we do now? Will Brother Lin be all right? The disciples of the Wind and Cloud Dojo were initially unfamiliar with Lin Bai. However, when they saw him shine brilliantly on the stage, their expressions were filled with admiration. One by one, they turned into fanboys and fangirls. One had to know that Lin Bai's victory also meant the victory of their Wind and Cloud Dojo. The head of the Wind and Cloud Dojo, Chen Kuren, who was also Chen Wu's father, handed over a bottle of pills. Although Chen Wu's family was a dojo, specialized in talisman seal, and was gradually on the decline, it was said that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The huge family business was still in stock. Thank you. Lin Bai took the pills and thanked him. The round porcelain bottle warmed his hands. Before he opened it, he could already faintly smell a refreshing medicinal fragrance. Lin Bai poured it into his palm. There were only two. However, each pill was surrounded by golden-edged medicinal patterns. They were high-quality pills. Chen Kuan took out his trump card. Originally, he wanted to leave it for Chen Wu to prepare for the last desperate battle. Lin Bai fought against 4 experts. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tired. Now that he had taken these pills, a warm current rushed up from his lower abdomen to his head. Not only did it replenish the energy that he had lost, but it also increased his cultivation by a few days. In terms of taking pills, who could compare to him? Those people could only double their cultivation, and it was only temporary. However, what he got back through the system was real benefits. Ding. Host has given Little Green 2 days of cultivation. 100 times critical strike return has been successfully triggered. Host has received 200 days of cultivation, 100 times critical strike. Lin Bai's eyes shone, and he seemed to have endless strength. The spiritual energy in his palm slowly condensed, as if the sky was pressing down, giving off a great pressure. The people who were about to go on the stage were stunned when they saw the scene before them. Golden light surrounded his body, condensing into a shadow that hovered behind him. Although it was a little blurry and couldn't be seen clearly, the outline of the shadow was clearly the shape of a dragon. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the changes in Lin Bai, not to mention the pressure that couldn't be ignored. If the original Lin Bai was a towering green mountain, now he seemed to have become one with the heaven and earth. What's going on? This kid took a bottle of medicine and broke through? The people from the major factions were confused. Everyone was taking medicine, but Lin Bai was different. The people from the Green Lotus medicine shop stared at Chen Kuan with bright eyes. Their gazes were too hot. Even Chen Kuan's old face was embarrassed by their stare. He said embarrassedly, "Don't look at me like that. You saw the medicine just now. It's only a high-grade medicine. It's still considered normal." Although Elder Xie and the others were doubtful, they knew that Chen Kuan wasn't lying. After all, they were specialized in making pills. Everyone was puzzled. They only thought that Lin Bai had extraordinary talent. It wasn't that there weren't people who had broken through in battle, but they didn't know that it was because of the system. Wan Chaozong's expression was dark and cold as he said, "This kid is really lucky. At first, we thought that he had used up most of his strength. We didn't expect him to advance at this critical moment." The people from the Broken Sword Escort Agency comforted him. "Brother Wan, don't worry. So what if he has advanced? There are so many of us. Can we not beat him when he's by himself?" The moment he said that, Lin Bai said indifferently, "It's a waste of time for you guys to come up one by one. Come fight me all together." This was too arrogant. Everyone gasped. After all, this was the elite disciple of the three major forces, the kind who had taken drugs. Yet, Lin Bai asked them to go up together. No way. What did he just say? Fight together? He's a ruthless man. I respect him as a man. Hearing that Lin Bai wanted to fight more than one, the crowd was in an uproar. No matter what the result of this battle was, he could be said to have become famous in one battle. After all, he had won 4 consecutive matches, and the top experts of the 1,000 Beast Chamber of Commerce had all returned in defeat. After that, he had advanced on the stage and fought against the people of the 3 major powers. This was something that had never happened before. Rumble. The loud noises on the stage continued without end. Everyone did not have the time to discuss. Their eyes were burning, and they did not want to miss out on any exciting scenes. The people from the 3 major powers were also extremely angry, and they swarmed forward. "If you want to die, then I'll grant you your wish. Kid, if you want to step on our name and rise to the top, then you'll have to see if you have the ability to do so." All kinds of martial techniques and battle techniques interweaved together, like a huge net, enveloping Lin Bai's entire body. That kind of pressure made even the other people on the stage feel a little uncomfortable. However, Lin Bai's left hand had martial techniques, while his right hand had spiritual power. Little Green was accumulating power and waiting to be unleashed. There seemed to be a vague shadow behind him, as if an ancient giant beast had descended. The man and the beast were extremely fast. They shuttled through the arena like ghosts, and the huge dragon body circled the entire arena. Outsiders could not see clearly, but they could only see vague shadows. Such a strange phenomenon made the Wan Chaozong, who had thought that they were sure to win, stand up from his chair. He actually felt a sense of unease in his heart. Lin Bai shuttled through the arena. His eyes were completely bloodshot from killing, and he swept through everything with the momentum of sweeping away everything in his way. Bang! All kinds of forces collided together, forming a huge ball of spiritual power that exploded in the air. For a moment, the sky and earth changed color. It felt like the end of the world. Who won? I don't know. Was it the 3 major forces or Lin Bai? Everyone was extremely curious. When the smoke slowly dispersed, a deep ravine was revealed on the ground. Even the arena had been destroyed. One could imagine how intense the battle was. Lin Bai stood in the middle. Although he looked somewhat wretched, there were no injuries on his body. On the other hand, the people from the three major factions were laying on the ground in disarray. At this moment, the entire stadium was completely silent. No one had expected that Lin Bai would really win. We won. We actually won. After a moment, the people from the Wind and Cloud Dojo finally reacted. They hugged each other in ecstasy and cried tears of joy. The importance of this match was self-evident to them. Previously, everyone had almost given up hope, but now, they had come back from the brink of death. Even Chun Wu's eyes were slightly red as she looked gratefully at Lin Bai. The people from the three major factions were all dumbfounded. Their expressions were as unsightly as they could be, especially the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce. Chun Wu slowly walked over. "Thank you so much this time." Her cheeks were flushed red, and even her watery eyes were unbelievably gentle. It was as if a pond of lotus flowers had bloomed, making people unable to look away. No one had ever seen Chun Wu show such an expression before. Even the people from the Wind and Cloud Dojo were flabbergasted when they saw this. Their gazes landed on Chun Wu and Lin Bai, and they immediately revealed ambiguous and mischievous smiles. However, Lin Bai seemed to be blind. With a calm expression, he said, "There's no need to be so polite. This is the agreement we made before." He had gained a lot from this trip. Not only had he solved the problem of the cultivation grounds, but even Little Green had also broken through in the battle just now and reached the 9th stage of the Hotian state. It was now only one stage away from reaching the Xiantian state. The person from the Green Lotus medicine shop opened his mouth and asked, "Elder Xie, are we still going to fight?" Elder Xie raised his hand and gave him a big slap, not caring that the people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce were still present. "You blind thing. If you have the ability, go up on stage and fight with him." Now that the competition venue had been destroyed by Lin Bai, if they continued to fight, who knew what kind of scene would be created? When Wan Chaozong heard these words, his heart immediately felt a little uncomfortable. On the other hand, although the Broken Sword Escort Agency didn't express their attitude directly like Elder Xie did, they just looked at their nose. Their actions had already explained everything. The people from the three major powers weren't fools. They all knew that if Lin Bai was just geniuses from the younger generation, they might be able to nip the bud. However, Lin Bai's strength wasn't below the elder level. One had to know that he was only in his early 20s, and his future was already limitless at such a young age. There was no point in killing him. If they didn't eradicate him, they might even offend a terrifying enemy. It was better to be on good terms with him. In short, it was best not to become an enemy. The people from the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce were still at a loss on how to face Lin Bai. After all, they had been itching to get rid of him just now. If they went up to him now, it would be a slap in the face. Before they could make up their minds, Elder Xie from the Green Lotus medicine shop was already walking towards Lin Bai with a smile on his face. "Little brother, you have such strength at such a young age. The younger generation is indeed formidable. May I ask what school you are from?" When the people from the Broken Sword Escort Agency saw this, they cursed in their hearts. Elder Xie was a little too quick to act. However, before Lin Bai could speak, Chun Kuan directly said, "The one who won this match is my son-in-law, Lin Bai." Not to mention him, even Chun Wu was dumbfounded. The redness on her snow-white cheeks became more and more obvious. It was as if layers of rouge had spread out, making her look extremely beautiful. She did not refute, but just lowered her head and did not say anything. Seeing Lin Bai and Chun Wu's reactions, the others immediately understood. In order to rope in Lin Bai, Chen Kuan had actually gone to such great lengths, even pushing out his own daughter. They had never seen such a shameless person. He was even more shameless than Elder Xie. A deep sense of crisis welled up in the hearts of the leader of the Broken Sword Escort Agency. They had already been taken advantage of by the Green Lotus medicine shop, and with Chun Kuan's words, there was no room for them anymore. They could no longer sit still. "What do you mean your son-in-law? He's my son-in-law when I see him." Everyone. Someone could not help but question, "Well, aren't your 3 children all sons?" Fortunately, the escort leader's son had gone out to escort a mission this time, so he did not participate in the competition. If he knew that his father would even say such words in order to win Lin Bai over, He didn't know how he would feel. The escort leader coughed a few times to cover up his awkwardness, as if nothing had happened. Lin Bai looked at them, feeling a little speechless in his heart. When the members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce saw that the Green Lotus Medicine Shop and the Broken Sword Escort Agency had defected one after another, they didn't know what to do for a moment. They carefully opened their mouths and asked, "Elder Wan, about that. Do we still want to take revenge?" The Wan Chaozong glared at him fiercely. Looking at Lin Bai, who was in the limelight, they could only sigh helplessly and harumph, "Let's go." Staying here was also a joke. They could not afford to offend Lin Bai, so they might as well leave as soon as possible. Compared to the high profile they had before coming here, the departure of the members of the Thousand Beast Chamber of Commerce did not attract anyone's attention. They walked out of the back door dejectedly. After bidding farewell to the people from the Wind and Cloud Dojo, Lin Bai prepared to go back and move the house. This trip could be said to be a great harvest. Not only did they obtain the alternate heaven-blessed land, but Little Green had also broken through during the battle. It was already at the Hotian state level 9. One more level, and it would be able to break through to the Xiantian state. Just as they reached the door of their house, Lin Rahai and Su Yun had already prepared food. When they saw Lin Bai's figure, they could not help but reveal joyful smiles. "I participated in a competition and was rewarded with a new place to live. Let's pack our things and move there in a while." The couple looked at each other and felt extremely gratified. They did not ask where their new home was. The family of 3 did not have much to pack. After packing their luggage, the couple followed Lin Bai on the road. Only when they reached their destination did they realize that their new place was actually a paradise. They had thought that it was just an ordinary house when they saw Lin Bai's carefree appearance just now. They had never expected that it would give them such a big surprise. This place was called the Chrisman Wan Peak and was worth 5 million crystals. Even if Lin Rahai and Su Yun worked day and night for several lifetimes, they wouldn't be able to earn the money. Su Yun stammered, Xiao Bai, we didn't go to the wrong place, right?" Lin Rahai pulled the two of them and was about to leave. He was afraid that he might accidentally barge into the territory of a high-level cultivator, and he was afraid that he might offend someone, but he was stopped by Lin Bai. "From now on, this will be our new home. The two of you can stay here in peace. You don't have to go out anymore in the future." The scenery here was clear and beautiful. Not far away, the mountains were lush and verdant. There were layers upon layers of mountains, and the scenery was beautiful. The chirping of insects and birds could be heard endlessly. It was as if they had arrived at the peach blossom paradise. Even the air here was incomparably fresh. One could only feel relaxed and at ease. Lin Bai sized up the place in front of him and was very satisfied. It was indeed a place with good feng shui. It was no wonder that the 4 major factions were fighting so fiercely. The spiritual energy here was abundant, and the scenery here was also unique. Not to mention that a cultivator like him would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort if he cultivated here. Even an ordinary person like Lin Rahai and Su Yun could be nourished by the spiritual energy here if they lived here. Their meridians would be cleansed, and their life would be prolonged too. The couple felt as if they were in a dream, but they could not believe it now. They could not help but ask again, "Will this be our home in the future?" When they saw Lin Bai nod his head affirmatively, their hearts were extremely excited, and they were so happy that they could not say a word. In the early morning, clouds and mist lingered above the Scarlet Wan Peak. Rays of multicolored light shot out in all directions, and one could vaguely see purple clouds gathering in this place. At times, 10,000 immortals came to pay their respects, and at other times, immortal beasts cried out in unison. All kinds of strange phenomena flocked over, as if one was in the 9 heavens' immortal palace. It was like a dream and a fantasy. Under the song tree, Lin Bai sat down cross-legged. Beside him was a precipitous cliff. The wind was biting cold, and the slightest carelessness could cause one's body to shatter into pieces. However, he was like an old monk in meditation, unmoving. With the colorful clouds covering his body and the spiritual energy gathering here, he had reached an extreme. Lin Bai slowly opened his eyes, as if a god had descended, and his eyes were full of divine light. Lin Bai could not help but exclaim, "Cultivating here is indeed twice the result with half the effort." Ding! The host has passed on 30 days of cultivation to Little Green. 30 times the return has been successfully triggered. The host has received 900 days of cultivation. Boom. Lin Bai felt as if something inside his body had loosened up. It was as if a tightly shut door had suddenly been pushed open, and his entire body felt lighter and lighter. At this moment, golden light flickered on Lin Bai's body, and even his blood and bones were coated with a faint layer of gold. The small stream-like meridians had also been widened into a river, and spiritual energy swirled and gathered. He had broken through to Xiantian State First Level, and that feeling was completely different. It was as if he could reach out his hand and pluck the stars and embrace the moon. Lin Bai gazed into the distance. The mountain ranges and the boundless mountains were nothing more than this feeling in his eyes. Needless to say, in terms of cultivation techniques, he had made a small achievement in the Octane Blast, and he had even made a breakthrough in the Heaven-Devouring Myriad phase art. I have few cultivation techniques, and they are both offensive types, so the type is relatively simple. He only had 2 cultivation techniques in his hands. Although they were both quite powerful, they were still not enough to face a truly powerful enemy. Just as Lin Bai was thinking, he heard a clear cry. The sound grew closer from afar and finally became clearer. Little Green, who was originally beside him, had unknowingly arrived on top of the huge rock. Its taut body was like a taut bowstring, ready to be drawn. Its beast eyes were also stretched out in a narrow straight line, flickering with a dangerous light. It stared at a certain direction in the sky. The hissing sound from its mouth became more and more obvious. A huge shadow suddenly swept over Lin Bai's head, bringing with it a powerful airflow that made it almost impossible to open one's eyes. At the same time, the temperature in the air became somewhat higher. What is this thing? Lin Bai was secretly vigilant. However, the speed of that creature was really too fast, so he did not see it clearly at all. The shadow once again flew over. Its gorgeous tail feathers were like flames. Each and every one of them was distinct. It drew a blazing arc in the air, almost burning people's eyes. He finally saw clearly that it was a scarlet one. It was approaching Little Green. Its sharp claws were like hooks. It was obvious that it had considered Little Green as food. Little Qing had a 2-star talent, and obviously could not compare to the scarlet one. However, it had awakened the Azure Dragon bloodline in its body. It had not yet evolved to the mature stage, so it could be said to be a great tonic for the Scarlet Wand. Clearly, the Scarlet Wand's actions had angered Little Green. It hissed and spat out its tongue, transforming into a green light as it charged forward. A red and a green shadow instantly intertwined together. Lin Bai sat on the wall and watched. He did not intend to interfere in the battle between them. He took this opportunity to let Little Green train. The Scarlet Wand was different from what he had seen in the past. Its body was exceptionally huge. As it flapped its wings, a hot current surged. Countless sparks burst forth as it rushed over from the clouds. Even the morning glow on the horizon seemed to be burning. The multicolored glow was like fire, paired with the azure blue sky. It was like a dream and a fantasy. However, behind this scene, there was a powerful killing intent. Countless fire meteors fell one after another. The scorching temperature was so hot that even mountain rocks could melt. Little Green shuttled through them, and the emerald green scales all over its body faintly emitted a red light. The bulges on both sides of its body became more obvious, and a pair of small wings suddenly grew out. The Scarlet Wand probably did not expect it to be able to fly, and for a moment, Little Green wrapped itself around the Scarlet Wand's neck. A powerful air current swept up the huge rock and fell, but Little Green was like a 1,000-year-old iron chain, tightening its body in circles. The Scarlet Wand struggled with all its strength, and its body emitted a huge flame, burning like a fireball. Little Green had no choice but to dodge to the side. Rumble! A loud sound could be heard, and sharp claws fell on the steep cliff, instantly hollowing out a large piece. If this landed on a human body, even if he did not die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Therefore, the Scarlet Wand's target was Little Green. Although the Scarlet Wand was huge and Little Green's body was smaller, it was agile and dodged most of the attacks. From time to time, it would turn around and give it 2 bites, causing feathers to fly in the air. However, it didn't cause any substantial damage to the Scarlet One. The two beasts fought back and forth, and they were evenly matched. The situation was in a stalemate, and neither could do anything to the other. Seeing this, Lin Bai couldn't help but look sideways. One had to know that Little Green was still one level away from reaching the Xiantian state after passing on its cultivation. At that time, it wouldn't have changed much. The powerful true dragon bloodline would make it stronger than many Xiantian state masters. But this Scarlet One was actually so powerful, and it was able to fight evenly with Little Green. It could be seen that its strength couldn't be underestimated. Its cultivation level should be between the Hotian 9th level to the Xiantian 1st level. Does Little Green need help? A thought came to Lin Bai's mind. Although Little Green couldn't speak, it could communicate simply through the sea of consciousness. No need. Watch how I teach it a lesson. This little bird actually treats me as food. Isn't it afraid of breaking its own teeth? Little Green's fighting spirit was also completely stimulated, and it rushed forward again. Since this alternate heaven-blessed land was called the Scarlet One Peak, it might have been its nest in the past. Lin Bai looked carefully and saw that the feathers in the middle of the Scarlet One's tail were particularly gorgeous, longer than the others. At first glance, it was like a phoenix tail feather. There was a high possibility that there was a trace of the divine beast phoenix bloodline in its body. Lin Bai reminded, Little Green, don't be ruthless. I want to take this Scarlet One as a beast pet. Master, you don't know. This Scarlet One's phoenix tail feather is a blessing and also a curse. If it doesn't cultivate as soon as possible, it will die in the flames. Although it has some phoenix bloodline that makes it especially powerful, it is also like a life-threatening talisman. Because Little Green's Azure Dragon bloodline had awakened, it had inherited a part of its memories at the same time, so it knew a lot of things. It was no wonder that this Scarlet One would target Little Green. Don't worry, I'll pass on my cultivation. All the problems can be easily solved. It just so happened that one dragon and one phoenix. When they both evolved into mature states in the future, one could imagine how cool it would be if they were brought out. Little Green and the Scarlet One were in a heated battle. It would be difficult to determine the victor in a short time. Lin Bai looked at the half of the mountain that had been scorched and the scorched earth on the ground. If they continued to fight, half of the entire Scarlet One Peak would be destroyed. Little Green, you retreat first. Let me do it. This kind of wild Scarlet One was extremely aggressive towards humans, but it was also very vigilant. In addition, it had already left its infancy period and could not compare to those Little Green who had hatched from a young age. The difficulty of the contract was relatively high. The beastmaster had to tame it with his own hands. Little Green flashed to the side, and Lin Bai's palm turned into a fist. Immediately, sand and stones flew, and like sharp arrows, it sped in the direction of the Scarlet One. It seemed to have sensed the arrival of danger. It leaped up and circled in the sky. Its scarlet beast eyes flickered with a ruthless light. It looked coldly at Lin Bai, who had suddenly attacked. Clearly, it had already gained intelligence. The Scarlet One flapped its wings. The hot current in the air surged. The fiery red feathers on its body became brighter and brighter, as if they were about to burn up. In fact, this was indeed the case. The feathers slowly fell off its body and transformed into tens of thousands of fire swords. They interweaved densely into a large net that pounced toward Lin Bai aggressively. The sharp arrows that the feathers transformed into were all extremely hot, not to mention that so many of them had gathered together. Lin Bai shuttled through them. His body was like a ghost that was constantly changing. A burning smell filled the air. Looking at half of his burning hair, he deliberately said, "Looks like we have something for dinner today. Let's just eat the roasted bird." As expected, when the Scarlet One heard his words, it became even more furious. It opened its mouth wide and let out a shrill cry. A huge fireball condensed in the air, wanting to burn this human who provoked him to the point that not even a residue was left. The temperature around his body became higher and higher. Even the original flowers, plants, and trees had already withered. Some of them had already turned into ashes during the battle just now. A layer of sweat condensed on Lin Bai's forehead. Before it fell down, it had already evaporated. His face was red, but his dark eyes were like a 10,000-year-old cold pond, not stirring up any waves. It was as if the situation in front of him was under his control. The Scarlet Luan in front of him had a ferocious aura. However, after using some energy in its previous battle with Little Green, it was no longer as strong as before. Even the flames were not as exquisite as before. Lin Bai clenched his fists and shouted loudly, "Octane Blast!" Invisible air currents gathered in the air and changed in a myriad of ways. It was like a beast tide that was surging endlessly. It was also like an incomparably lofty green mountain that crushed over with unstoppable momentum. The huge fireball was like a brilliant morning sun. When the two forces collided, huge sparks instantly exploded in the air and swept to the side. The fireball was actually shattered by the green mountain and turned into countless tiny sparks. They scattered in the air and were no longer a threat to the Scarlet Luan. The Scarlet Luan was stunned on the spot. The man in front of it was actually so powerful that he was a tough nut to crack. It suddenly felt a little scared and spread its wings, wanting to fly into the sky. However, Lin Bai saw that the Scarlet Luan wanted to escape, so how could he let it leave so easily? He raised his eyebrows and said, "It's too late for you to escape now." He turned around and grabbed the Scarlet Luan's wings, throwing a punch at it. The Scarlet Luan didn't expect Lin Bai to be able to endure the high temperature and get close to it. It flapped its wings and was about to take off, but it was pressed to the ground by Lin Bai. For a moment, fiery red feathers flew all over the sky. It was a beautiful scene. No matter how hard the Scarlet Luan struggled, Lin Bai's big hands were like iron pincers that couldn't break free. Lin Bai used his spirit energy to open up a transparent protective barrier to block its flames. The Scarlet Luan hardened its heart and pecked off its tail feathers. It transformed into a stream of light and flew towards Lin Bai. Bang! A loud explosion was heard in the air. Lin Bai was thrown to the side by a momentary carelessness. He looked at the Scarlet Luan that was struggling to fly into the sky and exerted more strength in his hands. With a miserable cry, the Scarlet Luan fell to the ground, creating a deep pit. He slowly walked over. The originally majestic Scarlet Luan looked extremely miserable at this moment. However, Lin Bai wanted to subdue it as a beast pet, so he naturally knew what to do. Although the Scarlet Luan looked miserable and had suffered a lot of injuries, it did not have any real injuries. When the Scarlet Luan saw Lin Bai walking over, it opened its mouth with force. However, it was already exhausted. After holding it in for a long time, it only spat out a small smoke ring. It did not even have the strength to stand up, let alone resist. It watched helplessly as Lin Bai formed a blood bond. A huge red magic array suddenly appeared on the ground. The wounds on the Scarlet Luan's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the feathers that had fallen off during the battle had grown back. The Scarlet Luan's spirit thought also appeared in Lin Bai's mind. Since your whole body is red, you can be called Little Red from now on. The degree of his naming was really rotten to the extreme. It could be seen from the previous Little Green and then the current Red Luan. It was not difficult to doubt whether he would name red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple in the future. However, Lin Bai did not notice it at all. It was probably because it was hard to tame its wild nature, or because he had just experienced a great battle. Even though they had already formed a contract, the Scarlet Luan shrank to the side and stared at Lin Bai and Little Green cultivating. Lin Bai was not worried that it would bite back. If a pet beast wanted to devour its master, it would have to pay a painful price in addition to having a strong cultivation. These few days, he had been working day and night. It was almost comparable to the scenery outside for more than 10 days. No wonder so many people were rushing to the alternate heaven-blessed land. Little Green, Little Red. Lin Bai summoned 2 pet beasts. He did not favor one over the other. Each pet beast received a cultivation of 5 days. Ding! The host has passed on 5 days of cultivation to Little Green. 10 times return has been successfully triggered. The host has received 50 days of cultivation. The host has passed on 5 days of cultivation base to Little Red. 100 times return has been successfully triggered. Host has received 500 days of cultivation. The system's voice continued to ring out continuously. This time, he was actually extremely lucky and unlocked another 100 times critical strike. The Scarlet Wand's entire body shone with golden light as it broke through to Sciention level 1. Even the tail feathers on its back had grown quite a bit. As it was the first time it had received cultivation, it still did not understand what had happened. It only reacted when it was about to break through. Although Little Green hadn't broken through yet, he was only one step away. It had even learned a new skill, Spread Mist. Not only did they gain a lot from it, but even Lin Bai had also awakened his third profession, Pillmaster. It was already extremely rare for an ordinary person to awaken 2 professions, let alone 3 professions. Moreover, it was a rare profession like Alchemy Master that had awakened. One must know that as consumable items, medicinal pills were always priceless and hard to come by. And a pill master who concocted medicinal pills was a superior existence at all times. With the aid of medicinal pills, Lin Bai, who possessed the cultivation returning system, was like a tiger with wings. Now that he had awakened his pill master profession, he wouldn't need to buy medicinal pills in the future. He could just directly concoct his own medicinal pills. This was a great thing. However, there was still an important problem. Pill forging required a pill formula. Thinking up to this point, Lin Bai decided to head to the largest medicinal shop in the city to think of a solution for this pill formula. The largest medicine shop in the city was the Green Lotus Medicine Shop. Not only did it sell medicinal pills, but it also sold all kinds of items needed to refine pills. It also had a complete range of items. Elder Xie was patrolling around. When he saw a familiar figure, his eyes could not help but light up. He immediately went up to welcome him warmly. "Little brother, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here. What kind of medicinal pills do you want to buy?" Lin Bai recognized that this was Elder Xie, whom he had met once during the competition that day. "I don't want to buy medicinal pills. I want to see what kind of pill formulas are available." Elder Xie sized up Lin Bai without batting an eyelid and asked tentatively, "Are you the one who wants to use them?" Seeing Lin Bai nod his head, he couldn't help but feel shocked in his heart. The smile on his face became even more fervent. If he knew that Lin Bai had awakened more than 2 profession, who knew how he would look like? "You should have just awakened your second profession, right? I didn't expect you to have such achievements at such a young age. The younger generation is truly formidable." Seeing that Elder Xie had misunderstood, Lin Bai did not explain. "We have the most basic pill formulas here. They nourish qi and nourish blood, repair wounds, and basic anti-zero venom. 4 pills like the small fortune pills. Although the materials are expensive, the workmanship is complicated, and the price is high. But the pill formulas are relatively common, so it's not that I can't give them to you." It was no wonder that pill masters were a profession that burned money. Even the price of the most basic pill formula was several thousand crystal stones, not to mention the other higher quality ones. Looking at the string of zeros behind it, Lin Bai couldn't help but click his tongue. Moreover, good pill formulas were hard to come by. Just like those cultivation methods, some were even more valuable than others. The more valuable ones were monopolized by the various power factions, and they wouldn't be easily leaked out. Similarly, if an pill master really matured, he would also be sought after by many people. Elder Xie thought that Lin Bai was young and promising. His future was limitless, and he intended to befriend him. In addition, the pill formula for the small fortune pill was not something rare. They were relatively common among pill masters. Therefore, he was also willing to give Lin Bai a favor. "Thank you very much. It seems that you are not familiar with pill concoction. In fact, besides the pill formula, concoction also emphasizes on medicinal ingredients and firepower." Lin Bai had little knowledge in this area, and there was no one around him knew how to refine pills. Therefore, he showed a puzzled expression. "Can't ordinary fire do it?" "It's not that it can't do it. It's just that the effects and quality of the pills will be greatly reduced." Lin Bai didn't know much about pill refinement either. He just wanted to obtain the pill formula first and do the rest slowly. At this moment, when he heard Elder Xie's words, his interest was immediately piqued. "I'd like to hear the details." Fire is divided into 9 grades. Take the 3rd grade Green Lotus fire in our shop, for example. As the name implies, it is 3rd grade. The name of the medicine shop came from this too. When he said this, Elder Xie's expression couldn't help but carry a hint of pride. It should be known that special flames were hard to find. A third-grade fire was already not bad. A fourth or fifth-grade fire could only be found in a bigger city. A sixth or seventh-grade fire could be counted on one's fingers in this world. As for eighth or ninth-grade fire, it was a legendary existence that almost no one had seen before. Every type of fire is different. Their main attribute is also different. Some are more offensive while some are more gentle. As for the medicinal ingredients, magic beast inner cores are also required. The higher the grade, the better. Lin Bai could not help but ask, could it be that the special flames can be used for battle besides pill refinement? Elder Xie was not surprised by Lin Bai's confusion. He stroked his beard and laughed loudly. Many people have the same thoughts as you. They think that pill masters have low combat power and are not very strong. This is indeed the case. However, there are actually some pill masters who rely on their powerful heavenly flames to have extraordinary combat strength. At this point, his tone paused, and even his expression became serious. However, there is one thing to be careful of. There is a great risk in subduing a heavenly flame. If one is lucky, one will suffer injuries and backlash. If one is unlucky, then not only will one's appearance be destroyed, one will also have to bear the pain of being burned by the heavenly flame. In the end, one will be reduced to ashes. There were once pill masters who blindly pursued the strength of the heavenly flame. They thought that only a heavenly flame of higher quality would be able to refine an excellent medicinal pill. However, they did not think that their bodies would not be able to withstand the tyrannical heavenly flame at all. As a result, they died. However, the attribute of most of the heavenly flames is still relatively mild. However, some of the heavenly flames are also more violent. Upon hearing Elder Xie's words, Lin Bai was deep in thought. It seemed that refining pills was not easy. If there was a chance, he would definitely find a heavenly flame with a higher quality. In this way, it turned out that magic beast cores were the easiest to obtain. Other than hunting magical beasts in the wild, he could also go to Secret Realm. Elder Xie led Lin Bai to a shelf. Of course, we still need tools to refine pills. All the pill cauldrons in our pharmacy are here. Little friend, why don't you pick a suitable one? Elder Xie's voice pulled Lin Bai back to his senses. He raised his head and looked up. The 3-story high shelf was neatly lined with all kinds of pill cauldrons. Some were big and some were small, with different colors and shapes. Some of them were shaped like the sun, and their bodies were full of divine splendor. Some of them were carved with beast patterns that looked lifelike. Some of them were heavy and steady, like the towering 5 mountains. For a moment, Lin Bai's eyes were dazzled, and he didn't know which one to choose. Which one do you like, little friend? I'll make the decision and give it to you. Although he said that, once he said it, Elder Xie began to regret it. After all, there were many high-quality pill cauldron here, and the price was almost 1,000,000 crystals. It was a bit painful to give them away just like that. However, he couldn't go back on his words. Lin Bai looked at each of the pill cauldrons one by one. They were all of excellent quality, but for some reason, he felt that they weren't pleasing to the eye. They seemed to be passable, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong with them. I think this blazing sun cauldron is quite suitable for you, young friend. It's domineering and forceful, and its aura is about the same as yours. This rejuvenation cauldron is also fine. It can neutralize the medicinal effects very well, and it's more suitable for beginners. Elder Xie was introducing the cauldron, but Lin Bai walked straight to the innermost part of the shelves. Probably because very few people came over, the shelves were covered in dust. Elder Xie said embarrassedly, "These are all problematic cauldrons that were just cleared out from the warehouse. I was just about to throw them away." Lin Bai's gaze paused, as if he was attracted by something. He saw a small black cauldron laying there quietly. It was different from the glowing cauldron beside it. This cauldron was dusty, and there was nothing outstanding about it. Even the body of the cauldron seemed to be missing a corner. In comparison, it was a little shabby. However, Lin Bai wanted this. Then let's go with this. Elder Xie's expression was a little doubtful. He looked around and saw that there weren't any good cauldrons around. Following the direction that Lin Bai pointed in, he was momentarily stunned. Are you sure you want to choose this? Do you want to reconsider? It was strange that this cauldron had appeared out of nowhere, so he didn't have any impression of it. If it wasn't for Lin Bai, he would have easily overlooked it. However, from the looks of it, it probably wasn't anything good. Lin Bai shook his head. Thank you for your kindness. I'll take it. But this cauldron is broken. It's very likely that it won't work. Elder Xia wanted to persuade him again, but since Lin Bai insisted, he couldn't say anything more. He probably felt a little guilty. They had agreed to give the cauldron to him, but Lin Bai chose a broken and small one. Thus, he gave Lin Bai some more medicinal herbs and politely sent him out. The disciple beside him didn't understand. He couldn't help but ask, Elder, why are you so polite to him? I saw that his clothes are ordinary, and he doesn't look particularly outstanding. This disciple did not attend the competition back then. If they knew, they would not be able to say such words. What do you know? If you see him coming in the future, you must inform me. Even if I can't make it in time, you must be respectful. Elder Xia instructed them, afraid that if these people accidentally offended Lin Bai, it would be a waste of his painstaking efforts. Looking at Lin Bai's departing back, he couldn't help but say, it's only been a short while since the last battle. Not only has this kid broken through, he's probably awakened a new profession. His future is bright, and he definitely won't be limited to this place. Who knows, we might need his help in the future. Just as Lin Bai was about to rush back to the alternate heaven-blessed land to cultivate, the academy sent someone to send him a message. It was the dean who wanted to see him. Why are you looking for me at this time? When Lin Bai rushed over, he was surprised to find that Chen Wu and Luo Qin were also inside. Chen Wu blinked her eyes. Her previous demeanor was cold and aloof. She was like an ice-cold beauty. At this moment, she appeared lively and charming. Although Luo Qin didn't say anything, he nodded at Lin Bai. Cough. The dean cleared his throat and said, I've gathered the three of you here today because I have an important mission for you. It turned out that the 4 major academies in the city wanted to send their outstanding disciples to participate in the secret realm training. Speaking of these major academies, everyone had long heard of their names. The 4 major academies were respectively the Sword Cultivation Academy, the Talisman Cultivation Academy, the Beast Tamer Academy, and the Body Cultivation Academy. Their names were named after the main fighting style of the current awakened ones. They all had long histories and were well established. At the same time, most of the students in the academy practiced this style. Although there were also students who practiced other styles, that number was very small. Because they specialized in this style, the students who trained in these academies were all extremely outstanding. Lin Bai's school was only the 5th high school that was not ranked in the rankings, so it only received 2 spots. The higher-ups of the school had already discussed that these 2 spots would be given to Luo Qin and Chen Wu respectively. However, a dark horse like Lin Bai had suddenly appeared. His performance was outstanding, so the school had strongly suggested to allow him to go. After listening to the dean's explanation, the 3 of them finally understood what was going on. I hope you can cherish this opportunity. After all, it's rare to be with the people from the 4 major academies. Chen Wu asked, then which secret realm will we go to this time? The Mystic Essence Secret Realm? The Mystic Essence Secret Realm was the place where the great Grandmaster of Sword Cultivation was born after he died from his tribulation. Although the great Grandmaster of Sword Cultivation failed to pass the tribulation, the spiritual energy in his body dispersed and nourished the land. Over time, the secret realm was formed. There were treasures and demonic beasts. It could be said that dangers and opportunities coexisted. Lin Bai naturally did not have any objections. After all, he had to search for medicinal herbs and magic cores. It was the same no matter where he went. Moreover, there were more resources in the mystic realm. As for Chen Wu and Luo Qin, they were even more willing to agree. They also wanted to take this opportunity to train themselves. You guys go back and pack up. We will be setting off in a few days. Gather at the entrance of the Mystic Essence Secret Realm. There will be a special teacher to bring you in. The dean gave a few more instructions before letting them leave. After the 3 of them left the academy, they returned home. A few days later, at the entrance of the Mystic Essence Secret Realm. By the time Lin Bai rushed over, There were already quite a number of people there. Some of them knew each other and greeted each other. The gathering was quite lively, but the people from the 4 great academies had yet to arrive. Chenwu looked at Lin Bai's figure and waved at him. Here. After the 3 of them successfully met up, Luo Qin couldn't help but say, "It seems that there are quite a lot of people on this trip to the secret realm." Every year, such activities were led by the 4 major academies, and this year was no exception. However, this time, they made an exception to let the other academies participate. So Luo Qin and Chenwu felt that it was quite new. Just as everyone was talking, they heard a da-da sound. It seemed that some creature was rushing over here, and even the ground was trembling slightly. It seems that some creature is coming over. It can't be a demon beast, right? Everyone guessed. They saw several creatures suddenly jump out from the bushes that were half the height of a person. The ground immediately splashed with dust, choking the other students and causing them to cough nonstop. If they had not retreated in time, they would have been stepped on. Someone cried out in surprise, "It's a 3-star Zephyr." The sharp horns on the horse's forehead flickered with a cold light. At the same time, it snorted. The person sitting on the horse's back surveyed the area from above with an extremely arrogant expression. The Zephyr was extremely fast, and it could travel thousands of miles in a day. At the same time, it did not lack attack power, so it was quite popular. However, there were not many of them. An ordinary person would only be able to see a few of them. Now, there were a total of 10 of them. The group of people wore blue clothes. The upper left corner of their clothes wore a badge of the same color. There was a vivid beast pattern engraved on it, and they looked very majestic. The 10 people on the horses got off and found a place for themselves. There were already people in those places, but they had been driven away by them. The other academies had the principle that it was better to leave things as they were, so they could only swallow their anger and leave. Someone couldn't stand their behavior and couldn't help but say, "Aren't these people a little too arrogant? This isn't their territory." However, he was quickly stopped by his companion beside him. "They are people from the Beast Tamer Academy. Keep your voice down. We can't afford to offend them." The moment he finished speaking, a huge magic array suddenly appeared in the air. A fierce, saber-toothed tiger actually pounced on the person who had spoken just now. The incident happened so suddenly that no one was on guard. Fortunately, the fierce tiger didn't hurt anyone. It only bared its teeth and spat out stinky saliva. Even so, the 2 people were still badly frightened. The people from the Beast Tamer Academy immediately burst into laughter. "With just this bit of strength, they dare to frame us behind our backs. Won't they be scared out of their wits when we enter the secret realm?" With the previous experience, everyone kept quiet. No one dared to speak again. Lin Bai couldn't help but frown. They just casually said a few words, and this group of people is already acting like this. Their actions are a little too overbearing. Fortunately, they were standing quite far away, so the people from the Beast Tamer Academy didn't hear what they said. Chenwu wasn't surprised. After all, the people from the 4 great factions were also like this. Those with great strength would naturally walk unhindered, wanting that everyone would give way for him. After all, their strength are displayed here. They have the capital to be so strong. The group of people were all Xiantian, especially the leading student. His aura was steady, and as he walked, he gave off an indistinct pressure. He might have already reached Xiantian level 5. One had to know that in their academy, only Lin Bai, Chenwu, and Luo Qin had broken through to the Xiantian state, and all of them had just broken through not too long ago. The Xiantian state, which was originally rare in the outside world, could actually be seen everywhere here like cabbages. How could Luo Qin not be deeply shocked? He couldn't help but exclaim, as expected, "There is always someone better than you. Before this, I thought that I was strong enough, but I didn't expect that I was just a frog at the bottom of a well." Luo Qin was known as a heaven's favorite in the 5th high school, but he suddenly came into contact with another level. Only then did he realize how big the difference was. His expression was listless, like a frosted eggplant. Just as Lin Bai was about to rush back to the alternate heaven-blessed land to cultivate, the academy sent someone to send him a message. It was the dean who wanted to see him. "Why are you looking for me at this time?" When Lin Bai rushed over, he was surprised to find that Chenwu and Luo Qin were also inside. Chunwoo blinked her eyes. Her previous demeanor was cold and aloof. She was like an ice-cold beauty. At this moment, she appeared lively and charming. Although Luo Qin didn't say anything, he nodded at Lin Bai. Cough. The dean cleared his throat and said, I've gathered the three of you here today because I have an important mission for you. It turned out that the 4 major academies in the city wanted to send their outstanding disciples to participate in the secret realm training. Speaking of these major academies, everyone had long heard of their names. The 4 major academies were respectively the Sword Cultivation Academy, the Talisman Cultivation Academy, the Beast Tamer Academy, and the Body Cultivation Academy. Their names were named after the main fighting style of the current awakened ones. They all had long histories and were well established. At the same time, most of the students in the academy practiced this style. Although there were also students who practiced other styles, that number was very small. Because they specialized in this style, the students who trained in these academies were all extremely outstanding. Lin Bai's school was only the 5th high school that was not ranked in the rankings, so it only received 2 spots. The higher-ups of the school had already discussed that these 2 spots would be given to Luo Qin and Chenwu respectively. However, a dark horse like Lin Bai had suddenly appeared. His performance was outstanding, so the school had strongly suggested to allow him to go. After listening to the dean's explanation, the 3 of them finally understood what was going on. I hope you can cherish this opportunity. After all, it's rare to be with the people from the 4 major academies. Chenwu asked, Then which secret realm will we go to this time? The Mystic Essence Secret Realm. The Mystic Essence Secret Realm was the place where the great Grandmaster of Sword Cultivation was born after he died from his tribulation. Although the great Grandmaster of Sword Cultivation failed to pass the tribulation, the spiritual energy in his body dispersed and nourished the land. Over time, the secret realm was formed. There were treasures and demonic beasts. It could be said that dangers and opportunities coexisted. Lin Bai naturally did not have any objections. After all, he had to search for medicinal herbs and magic cores. It was the same no matter where he went. Moreover, there were more resources in the mystic realm. As for Chenwu and Luo Qin, they were even more willing to agree. They also wanted to take this opportunity to train themselves. You guys go back and pack up. We will be setting off in a few days. Gather at the entrance of the Mystic Essence Secret Realm. There will be a special teacher to bring you in. The dean gave a few more instructions before letting them leave. After the 3 of them left the academy, they returned home. A few days later, at the entrance of the Mystic Essence Secret Realm, by the time Lin Bai rushed over, there were already quite a number of people there. Some of them knew each other and greeted each other. The gathering was quite lively, but the people from the 4 great academies had yet to arrive. Chenwu looked at Lin Bai's figure and waved at him. Here. After the 3 of them successfully met up, Luo Qin couldn't help but say, It seems that there are quite a lot of people on this trip to the secret realm. Every year, such activities were led by the 4 major academies, and this year was no exception. However, this time, they made an exception to let the other academies participate. So Luo Qin and Chenwu felt that it was quite new. Just as everyone was talking, they heard a da-da sound. It seemed that some creature was rushing over here, and even the ground was trembling slightly. It seems that some creature is coming over. It can't be a demon beast, right? Everyone guessed. They saw several creatures suddenly jump out from the bushes that were half the height of a person. The ground immediately splashed with dust, choking the other students and causing them to cough nonstop. If they had not retreated in time, they would have been stepped on. Someone cried out in surprise, It's a 3-star Zephyr. The sharp horns on the horse's forehead flickered with a cold light. At the same time, it snorted. The person sitting on the horse's back surveyed the area from above with an extremely arrogant expression. The Zephyr was extremely fast, and it could travel thousands of miles in a day. At the same time, it did not lack attack power, so it was quite popular. However, there were not many of them. An ordinary person would only be able to see a few of them. Now, there were a total of 10 of them. The group of people wore blue clothes. The upper left corner of their clothes wore a badge of the same color. There was a vivid beast pattern engraved on it, and they looked very majestic. The 10 people on the horses got off and found a place for themselves. There were already people in those places, but they had been driven away by them. The other academies had the principle that it was better to leave things as they were, so they could only swallow their anger and leave. Someone couldn't stand their behavior and couldn't help but say, "Aren't these people a little too arrogant? This isn't their territory." However, he was quickly stopped by his companion beside him. "They are people from the Beast Tamer Academy. Keep your voice down. We can't afford to offend them." The moment he finished speaking, a huge magic array suddenly appeared in the air. A fierce, saber-toothed tiger actually pounced on the person who had spoken just now. The incident happened so suddenly that no one was on guard. Fortunately, the fierce tiger didn't hurt anyone. It only bared its teeth and spat out stinky saliva. Even so, the two people were still badly frightened. The people from the Beast Tamer Academy immediately burst into laughter. "With just this bit of strength, they dare to frame us behind our backs. Won't they be scared out of their wits when we enter the secret realm?" With the previous experience, everyone kept quiet. No one dared to speak again. Lin Bai couldn't help but frown. They just casually said a few words, and this group of people is already acting like this. Their actions are a little too overbearing. Fortunately, they were standing quite far away, so the people from the Beast Tamer Academy didn't hear what they said. Chenwu wasn't surprised. After all, the people from the four great factions were also like this. Those with great strength would naturally walk unhindered, wanting that everyone would give way for him. After all, their strength are displayed here. They have the capital to be so strong. The group of people were all Xiantian, especially the leading student. His aura was steady, and as he walked, he gave off an indistinct pressure. He might have already reached Xiantian level 5. One had to know that in their academy, only Lin Bai, Chenwu, and Luoqin had broken through to the Xiantian state, and all of them had just broken through not too long ago. The Xiantian state, which was originally rare in the outside world, could actually be seen everywhere here like cabbages. How could Luoqin not be deeply shocked? He couldn't help but exclaim, as expected, "There is always someone better than you. Before this, I thought that I was strong enough, but I didn't expect that I was just a frog at the bottom of a well." Luoqin was known as a heaven's favorite in the 5th high school, but he suddenly came into contact with another level. Only then did he realize how big the difference was. His expression was listless, like a frosted eggplant. After the Beast Tamer Academy, the people from the Sword Cultivation Academy, the Talisman Cultivation Academy, and the Body Cultivation Academy also arrived. After the leading teacher saw that everyone had arrived, it was time to open the secret realm. "I believe that before coming here, your teacher has already told you about the situation of the Mystic Essence secret realm, so I won't beat around the bush. Danger and opportunity coexist. There will definitely be disputes in the secret realm. You will have to rely on your own abilities. Every student can have a chance to initiate a confrontation in the secret realm. They can also reject a confrontation with the other party. The leading teacher will decide the decision, so as to prevent the loss of lives." After the leading teacher explained the rules clearly, each institution began to form their own teams. Needless to say, the 4 major institutions had formed their own teams. As for the other institutions, they had formed their own teams as well. Only the 5th high school was placed at the end of the line, so their position became a little awkward. The people from the 4 major schools looked down on them, and the other ordinary schools didn't want their teams to be burdened. Having more people meant that everyone would get fewer resources. Moreover, Lin Bai and the others had just broken through to the Xiantian state. Their strength was average, so they wouldn't be of much use. The strength of the 5th high school is average. I don't know why they are able to come this time. They have just broken through to the Xiantian state, so their strength is too weak. This is not enough for the secret realm at all. We are already struggling. We can't carry the 3 of them even if we bring them along." Hearing the whispers of the people around them, Chenwu's face was thin, and at this moment, it was already red. It was unknown whether she was angry or embarrassed. Luoqin's expression was normal, but his fists were tightly clenched. Only Lin Bai was calm and composed. It was fine if he did not go with this group of people. No one would interfere with his free movement. When the people from the Body Cultivation Academy saw this, they said in a strange tone, "I think the 3 of you should just go home. The secret realm is too dangerous. With your cultivation level, I'm afraid you won't be able to last half a day." Luo Qin's bones creaked. He was about to rush forward, but he was stopped by Lin Bai. His black and white eyes had a hint of coldness, like an unfathomable ancient well. The student who had mocked him earlier did not dare to meet Lin Bai's gaze for a moment. He thought to himself, what the hell? He was clearly just a person who had just broken through to the Xiantian state. Looking at the backs of the people from the Body Cultivation Academy walking away, Luo Qin punched the tree trunk. The branches and leaves shook and countless leaves fell down. He was indignant. Why did you stop me just now? Qinwu couldn't help but roll her eyes. If I didn't stop you, should I have allowed you to have an argument with them and then see things get out of hand? Luo Qin thought about it, and it was indeed the case. He was just a little unwilling to accept it. That group of people spoke a little too harshly. So what if they're from the 4 great academies? Look at the attitude of the people from the Beast Tamer Academy. You should know that this group of people aren't easy to get along with. They look down on us ordinary academies. Lin Bai consoled. Actually, this is also good. We don't have to be controlled by others. However, Qinwu wasn't that optimistic. She shook her head and said, you don't understand that since it's your first time entering in Secret Realm, we don't have many people, and our strength isn't high either. If anything dangerous happens, I'm afraid we won't be able to deal with it. After all, she was the daughter of the Wind and Cloud Dojo's director. Although the Wind and Cloud Dojo was declining day by day, and the resources they received were very small, Qinwu had been to a Secret Realm before, so she knew how dangerous it was. Since we're already here, let's just take things as they come. Luo Qin walked at the back, wanting to say something, but he hesitated. His expression was a little conflicted, as if he had finally made up his mind. Calm down and think about it. What they said makes sense. Our strength is indeed insufficient, so I'm afraid it won't be of much benefit if we go. After saying this, he felt a little dejected. Luo Qin, who had always thought that he was talented, was nothing in this place. No wonder he felt so inferior. Although it was uncomfortable, he had to admit it. Qinwu could hear the intention of retreat in his words. So you mean you want to quit? Luo Qin thought for a moment and nodded. Mystic Essence Secret Realm is full of dangers. It's better to wait until we are strong. It's also possible to go to the outer area to train. Among the 3 of them, Lin Bai might be the only one who had the strength to go there. If Luo Qin went there, he might even drag down the 2 of them. Qinwu also felt that what he said made sense. She asked, Lin Bai, what do you think? I still want to go there. However, what you guys said is the truth. It's also a good choice to train in the outer regions. There were also training grounds in the outer regions of the Mystic Essence Secret Realm. Although it could not be compared to the Secret Realm, it was much better compared to the outer regions. Some students of the academies would also choose this place. Qinwu said with some worry, but it's too dangerous for you to do it alone. Luo Qin also echoed from the side, that's right. If something happens and you don't have anyone to look after you, why don't you come with us to experience the outside world? Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Moreover, do I look like someone who would act rashly? Qinwu and Luo Qin thought of Lin Bai's unpredictable methods and the pet beast that was clearly a 2-star talent, but was able to defeat other pet beasts of a higher level. It was no wonder that he dared to challenge it. Perhaps he had other trump cards in his hands. A huge magic formation rose from under Lin Bai's feet. After the red and green lights flashed, a crisp bird cry could be heard, just like the cry of a young phoenix. Looking at the scarlet luan hovering in the sky, its fiery red feathers sparkled under the sunlight, making it look extraordinary and awe-inspiring. Luo Qin and Qinwu were a little surprised. Did you tame this recently? They remembered that Lin Bai's pet beast was a little green snake. Qinwu thought of Lin Bai's alternate heaven paradise, Scarlet Luan Peak. Could it be that he had tamed it there? As expected, she heard Lin Bai's answer. Luo Qin only found out about this today. He couldn't help but click his tongue and say, Kid, you're lucky. Not only did you get an alternate heaven paradise, you even got 2 for 1. Why don't I have such good luck? Everyone could contract a few pet beasts. The higher one's strength was, the more they could contract. However, Luo Qin and Qinwu hadn't met a beast that suited their hearts. With the idea that it was better to not have one than get a random one, so they only had one so far. For the scarlet one, it could be seen that there was still a lot of room for it to grow in the future. The magnificent tail feathers were not to be admired. Luo Qin and Chun Wu were both able to recognize the goods, and their hearts were instantly filled with envy. Plus, there was Little Green, who could challenge people of a higher level. It was no wonder that Lin Bai was so confident. Luo Qin and Chun Wu immediately felt much more at ease. "Oh right, take this. It will be useful in case you get injured." Chun Wu suddenly thought of something and stuffed a porcelain bottle into Lin Bai's hand. Chen Kuren was originally worried that she would get injured and get into an accident. He could faintly smell a medicinal fragrance. It was obvious that it was not an ordinary medicinal pill. Lin Bai wanted to refuse, but seeing Chun Wu's determined gaze, he could not refuse. "Thank you very much. You guys have to be careful too." "Okay," Chun Wu replied softly. No one noticed that her earlobe hidden in her hair had secretly turned red. Luo Qin was like a transparent person. He felt that Chun Wu was a little strange compared to usual, but he could not put his finger on it. He could not help but ask, "What about mine? At least the three of us are together. Why does Lin Bai have one and not me?" Chun Wu returned to her expressionless face. "Lin Bai is going to the secret realm, and it's very dangerous. As for you..." She pursed her lips and snorted coldly. The meaning behind her words was self-evident. Luo Qin? All right. It was clearly a team of 3 people, but he wasn't worthy. After bidding farewell to Luo Qin and Chen Wu, Lin Bai set out on his journey alone. Little Green and Little Red were more sensitive to auras and could easily find traces of demonic beasts. At the same time, if there was any danger, they would be able to immediately warn everyone. Accompanied by a cry, the scarlet swan flapped its wings and sped off in a certain direction. In a short while, it turned into a small black dot. Lin Bai stared in the direction where he disappeared. Little Red might have discovered something. At the same time, Little Green seemed to have sensed it too and also sped up and pointed the way for Lin Bai. The strong trees were intertwined, like ancient dragons sleeping on the land. The exposed branches and leaves were its pulse, and rings of growth rings bore witness to the traces of time. Lin Bai walked among them. The light became dimmer and dimmer. He could barely see the huge marks on the ground, as well as the traces of some kind of creature passing by. He could not help but fall into deep thought. It looked like the footprints of some kind of reptile. Just as Lin Bai was thinking, he vaguely heard the sound of water. He carefully pushed aside the grass that was half the height of a man in front of him. Not far away, there was a white light refracting. When he got closer, he found that it was a lake. Little Red was hovering in the sky. The lake was so big that it had no boundaries. It was so clear that one could see the bottom. It was like a transparent crystal embedded in the forest. The towering boulders surrounding it were like the most loyal guards guarding this place. Lin Bai looked around and did not find anything unusual. Could it be that we made a mistake? He frowned slightly and saw that the surroundings were quiet. There was no trace of any small animals on the green grass. Logically speaking, there would more or less be the shadow of demonic beasts next to such a water source. However, other than the giant footprints that he had just found, there was nothing unusual in the area. It was quiet and peaceful, as if he had entered a fairyland by mistake. That wasn't right. This place was too quiet, which was why it seemed so strange. Lin Bai did not see the ripples that formed in the middle of the water surface. In the end, they grew larger and larger, as if something was about to come out. Little Red's cry became even more urgent. Rumble! With a loud explosion, water that was half the height of a person surged up from the surface of the lake. Countless water droplets shot up into the sky, as if it was raining, blocking Lin Bai's vision. A huge head emerged from the water. The serrated teeth were arranged in a neat and orderly manner, as if it could swallow a person whole with a single bite. The faint beast eyes stared at Lin Bai in a straight-line shape, causing one to shudder at the sight. This was actually an incomparably ferocious explosion crocodile. It suddenly opened its bloody mouth, and a fishy wind blew against his face. At the same time, the air was filled with an indescribable strange smell, and a dark green fog surged over. This fog was obviously poisonous. Lin Bai hurriedly swallowed the detoxification pill that Chunwu had given him earlier. The flowers and plants that came into contact with the dark green gas instantly withered, showing how powerful the poison was. The explosive crocodile only popped out its head, and most of its body was hidden under the water. Therefore, Lin Bai did not know how big it was, but judging from the movement just now, its body was definitely not small. It should be at Xiantian level 1. Lin Bai himself was also at Xiantian level 1, so it was not difficult for him to deal with it. As long as he did not go into the water, it would be fine. After all, the water was not his home ground. Seeing that Lin Bai had easily dodged its attack, the alligator exerted its strength again. The dark green fog turned into poisonous arrows that almost covered the sky and earth. The dark green light carried a strong wind and came over. It was an almost impenetrable existence. Lin Bai shuttled through it. His figure was like a ghost. Spiritual energy spread out, forming a transparent protective barrier that enveloped his entire body. Little Red would occasionally harass the explosive crocodile in the sky and give it a claw. The explosion crocodile's skin was rough and its flesh was thick. Although Little Red could not break through its defense, it was able to disturb its mind. Clearly, the explosion crocodile was